Okay, so what are you saying, people, and welcome back to your favorite YouTube channel. Like always, guys, another weekly analysis video for you. On the screen of the pairs we'll be analyzing today, but make sure you do stay to the end of the video. As always, there is a bonus pair for you. Feel free to skip ahead. There is timestamps below for specific pairs you will be looking for. I will go through my trades for the week first, then we'll start with Euro USD and we'll go through the remaining pairs. But like I said, feel free to skip ahead if you want to, and of course we'll touch on the DXY as well. But I had a new trade that I took this week. I did close my CAD yen position, which I've held for probably about 3 or 4 weeks now. I have closed it after this very strong bullish candle. Things are shifting. Did have my stop loss trailed just above 109.6. I would have been trailed out anyway. I did close the trade after that big candle because things look like direction is changing and looks like we're probably going to get pushed back to the high rather than the continuation I was looking back down to 103. I did secure gains a while ago when we did break structure here, and then I closed the remaining there as well. So it's been a successful trade. Of course, I would have liked it price to continue falling, but not every swing trade is going to be the big winner. Some are going to go in your direction. It's about up to you how you manage it, and some of course will reverse against you, and this is probably one of them. So I'll keep an eye on CAD yen. There's of course opportunities which we'll speak about later in the video. I still think there could be a big sell, but we'll touch on that later on. In terms of pound CHF, which is the new position I picked up on Wednesday, I believe, or was it Thursday? No, it was Tuesday. But yeah, I took the trade on Tuesday. Really nice move to the downside. It did consolidate for a little bit, but we had the Bank of England interest rate decision. Momentum stepped in and a really strong move to the downside. So I do think with pound CHF, there is a long way to go if we do continue with these lower highs. 1, 2, potentially third. That's the whole idea of why I shorted there, because I'm looking to potentially catch that next low high, and look to potentially ride it back into the lows. But at the moment there is a big range for pound CHF, equal highs there, equal lows. So the plan is, let's see if we can get back to the low of the range, and there I'll look to book profits, and then I'll leave some positions to run to see if I can get it back down to that low and really milk the trade. I'll trail stops as well, exactly how I manage CAD yen. But the idea is that we have a long way down if we do manage the breakout, and hopefully find some additional trades on the retest of the breakout, because that actually was my original trade idea. But since we had another big move to the high, really strong rejection there, I said let me look to take some trades there, and then hopefully I can add to it. And so far it's going okay. So that is pound CHF, the only trade I have open at the moment, and we'll see how that continues. But let's go take a look at the dollar. Dollar very bullish this week, taking out the highs there as well. Pretty strong weekly candle closure as well. Maybe not the strongest in the world, not necessarily breaking out of this structure fantastically. It's a strong break, but again left a bit of a wick to the upside. So again, nothing concrete, but structure is continuing on the lower charts. We're still seeing higher highs and higher lows, so buys still look good from that regard. But I do want to see a bit more momentum on these weekly candles to really convince to me that we are breaking through this structure and that our next move is going to be 113. But for now, at least for next week anyway, nice push to the upside, creating new highs. This area here looks like a nice place for a buy. If I whip out the fib, you can see it lines up very well with 0.5. Of course, nice consolidation there before a big strong move to the upside. If price was to revisit that, I do think we'll see some more upside back to the highs there and continue. So very bullish on dollar. I do think more upside is likely. So of course, taking that information to euro, I do think we'll probably see the opposite. And again, it's the exact same situation with euro in terms of the higher time frames. It looks like price is trying to break through this weekly support level. It's not concrete. It's not absolute yet. We did have a close slightly below, but we're leaving big wicks there to the downside, so it's not a convincing break. And potentially Euro USD could still very much turn around, and same with dollar can turn around as well. So on the lower time frames, I think shorts look good because there's still a lot of bearish momentum in the market. We're still seeing a lot of consistent lower highs. But I wouldn't get too excited by the shorts just yet until we have some more evidence on the weekly chart. And again, we can be patient for that, because maybe it takes a couple of weeks for us to be really confident with the breakout. If we do get the breakout, I do think a push to 0.97, 0.96 is where price is likely to go. So if that is the case, I'll be very patient, because there could be a lot of downside to come anyway. But drop it back to the 4-hour chart. There's some nice structure here, similar trade I did to the dollar. If I get rid of this level, we know it's there. You can see some nice lows, lower high, lower low. This looks like a really nice place for the next lower high, some shorts and a push back to the low there. And possibly that's when we go and take out this low and really continue. I do think USD strength is likely here to stay, but let's wait for some more evidence for that. I think this could be a nice trade from an intraday level. Entries around there, stops above the high, and then some shorts back into this area makes a lot of sense. And then we'll wait and see if we do go and break through the lows. But yeah, Euro USD very bearish. Keep an eye on 1.04645 for some entries. The idea is we're looking for the next lower high in this bearish sequence, and getting some shorts in that area. So that will be the plan next week for Euro USD. Okay, so next up we've got USD JPY. So with this one, very bullish this week, very strong candle closure on the weekly chart, and things are shifting. I've been very bearish in dollar yen. However, looking at the higher time frames, what levels we're bouncing from, it does look like direction is changing, and we could be looking for a push back to the highs at 161. So with dollar yen going forward, I will be looking for pullbacks and more upside. Dropping back down to the 4-hour chart, you can see a lovely move this week. Very strong, of course, with the yen interest rate, but of course off the back of the Fed interest rate as well, as a recipe for a lot of upside for dollar yen. And we closed above these highs here, which is pretty significant. Now I'm looking at this as our last major higher low, and of course this being our new higher high. So now I'm looking for a pullback of that move for more upside. If I whip out the Fibonacci from the low to the high, you can see it lines up very well with the 50%. This zone here, brief consolidation, that's where all the momentum came from post the news. So if we could come back, retest that, tag the 50 as well, I think this is a really nice place to be looking for the higher lows, take it back to the high, and then potentially leave some positions to run to see if we can get to that daily, weekly swing high back at 161, 162. So very bullish on dollar yen, looking for more upside, looking for some pullbacks into that area, and that's why we're looking for a higher low. And I think there's a really good chance we do see more upside for dollar yen. But of course, first the pullback, and then we can start speaking about some longs. But at least for next week, looking for a pullback into 154. And again, next week might be a bit dry, but more or less looking for a pullback into this area, then upside back to 158. And then hopefully we can leave some positions to run to 162. But that is the plan there for dollar yen. Okay, so now on to dollar CAD. So another USD pair looking very bullish this week, clearing the highs very aggressively. And if I scoot to the weekly chart, you can see we've confidently broken through 1.39. It looks like we're going to the next big weekly level, which I've got mapped out around 1.46. As we can see, massive highs, massive rejection at this area. Most likely price is now going to come back and tap that same area. So the plan for me would be looking to keep taking advantage of buys, keep taking advantage of that momentum back to that next level, and just looking to buy the pullbacks essentially. Not really interested in the sells. Yes, the market's a bit overextended, probably due a bit of a pullback, but I would expect that just to be a pullback for price to find a higher low and continue to the upside. And again, if I whip out the fib from the low to the high, this is the most recent low as it gave us that new high. It lines up very well with the 0.618. Maybe I'm asking a bit much from dollar CAD because there's a lot of momentum in the market, and would we see a pullback that big? Of course, we don't know, but I know if price does get there, nice correctively, no crazy momentum, I would be looking for a higher low at that area. Of course, waiting for my confirmations, but this is where my confluences lie. Looking for that next higher low, seeing that higher high, and again, at least take us back to the high there. But I know that potentially we could be looking to move back to 1.46. So again, looking to see if I can manage that trade and try and push it a little bit further to that next weekly level. But the way I'm looking at dollar CAD, USD still looks pretty strong. If that remains, dollar CAD will keep pushing. Hopefully we can get a bit of a correction beforehand, find some nice opportunities to find some entries and ride that up. But everything's pointing to the upside across all time frames here. A lot of momentum in the chart as well. So I would expect naturally the market to continue this. So hopefully you can find some pullbacks, find some entries, and we'll take that back into the high for next week for dollar CAD. Okay, so next up we've got Euro Pound. So Euro Pound was still trading in massive monthly support, and so far we're leaving a bit of a wick, but the monthly candle still has 10 days left to close. So a lot can happen in that time, but all I know is that in this area, I'm predominantly looking for buys, expecting a bounce for Euro Pound. If we were to break through and see a strong candle closure below, I'll hold my hands up, wait for that at the end of the month. Then possibly we could be talking about breakouts and some more downside, but at that point, yeah, I'll be very bearish. Right now, we're not there. So still looking for a bit of a wick to form, which it is forming. But like I said, the candle's still open, still live. A lot can happen, but I am looking for the buys here. The thing is, we have to be careful if we're looking for buys. So although, yes, we're in some major support, the trend is still very much bearish. We are still seeing consistent lower lows and lower highs. So although, yes, we can turn around, need to be careful and respect what the market is doing. It does look like we formed some equal lows here, a nice double bottom. Potentially, price could be looking to turn around now. It would be nice if we could break structure and basically break through that high. That would be a nice sign that, okay, we're taking out highs now because we've been very consistent at putting lower highs in. So that'll be a sign that, okay, we are starting to shift, especially after some equal lows there. And then this is a nice level around 0.827. Really strong support. These look like a couple of fake outs to me, one over there and second over there. If we can break structure and then pull back for a retest, I think this would be a nice area for a nice buy. Again, nothing crazy, back to resistance or maybe back to the highs here, because again, we could very much form another major low high and continue that down. So showing respect to the trend, which is still definitely bearish, but we know we're definitely in an area where we can turn around. And if we see signs of that, like breaking through highs, looking for pullbacks, retesting this area, potentially for that first high low, that could be a really nice trade that sets up in the next few days. So looking for buys for Euro Pound, as we have been doing, because of where we're situated, and rightly so, but need to wait for evidence that we are going to turn around, and that's not quite there yet. So let's see if we can break structure, then get some pullbacks. 0.828 looks like a solid level, really nice support in the past. Expecting that to hold again, of course, waiting for confirmations before jumping into anything. But once we get that, hopefully we can find some buys and take it back to resistance. But that will be the plan next week for Euro Pound. Okay, so if we go to Aussie dollar and we start things off with the monthly chart, you can see that price is looking very, very bearish. We had a really nice breaking retest of some key support over here, turn resistance, as we can see, really strong rejection. So I do think there's a pretty good chance longer term that we could be pushing back to the COVID lows of 2020, around 0.57, 0.56. We are coming into some major support here, but I do think price is likely to break through. And if we do scale to the lower time frames, because we have broken through some key support this week, this level here as well, and this low here as well, I do think we can see a bit of a pullback and then more downside. So the plan for Aussie dollar is a bit of a correction, hopefully next few days, and then we see some opportunities to keep shorting, back to go and take out these lows here, and eventually, back to the lows there. But we can talk about that closer to the time. But for now, I do think 0.616 is likely to be taken out in the next few days. Again, potentially the markets might be a bit dry over the next couple of weeks, but once we do see momentum come back in, I do think price will go eventually take out those lows. So the plan for Aussie dollar on the low time frames, particularly the 4H, is looking for some pullbacks. This was some nice 4-hour support before we went and broke through it. I do think pullbacks to these areas would be looking good for some shorts. The market's been very consistent with all these lower highs in the 4-hour time frame. So as long as we maintain this structure, looking for pullbacks, looking for the next lower high, and a push back down to that wick low at 0.616 is what I am expecting for Aussie dollar. Looks like USD as well is going to see more strength. If that remains, that's more downside for Aussie dollar most likely. And in general, Aussie's been very, very weak, and I don't think we've seen any evidence of that turning around. So if you do see some upsides, probably going to be a pullback, looking for the next lower high and expecting some more downside next week. Okay, so next up we've got New Zealand CAD. So everything's looking pretty bearish with NZD CAD, and I do think more downside is on the cards. I've been speaking a lot about this ascending channel here, and it looks like that has finally come to an end. Really nice higher highs and higher lows, but because how corrective price was, not really seeing much momentum. And of course, if I zoom out to, let's say, the monthly chart, you can see how consistent price has been with these lower highs. I was expecting price to eventually break to the downside, and it looks like we're starting to get the sign of that happening. So I do think more downside is likely with New Zealand CAD. Dropping back to the daily chart, looks like we're just about taking up structure as well. Looks like this bearish trend has just continued, and finally we're starting to see some nice momentum as well, which is the key thing I was speaking about with New Zealand CAD and Aussie CAD the past couple of weeks, is that we've been very corrective. So even if we do get a nice breakout, I want to see momentum. If it's kind of slow and corrective, I'm not going to be looking to trade it, but we've picked up some nice pace. So again, the next plan is to look for that next lower high and the next short to the downside. If I whip out the fib from the most recent high to the low, Do have some nice confluence around here, nice brief area of consolidation, more or less back into 0.82, 0.822. This is the area I'll be looking for some downside, next lower high. And I do expect us to eventually come back to the lows here, but of course, probably not going to look to take that in one trade, especially with a pair like New Zealand CAD. I highly doubt we kind of just have a big sell-off unless maybe some momentum comes in from somewhere. We probably are going to be a little bit corrective on the way down, so there'll be probably multiple pullbacks to take advantage of and get it and trade. But in terms of a trade for next week, if you can find some pullbacks to 0.82, I think that's a very sensible place to be looking for some shorts and probably get a decent risk reward back into that low, and maybe further as well if you want to look to hold on some onto some positions. But overall, New Zealand CAD looks very bearish to me, consistent with the lower highs, taking out some key bullish structure on the daily chart. Chances of us seeing more downside are pretty high. So let's see if we can get a pullback, find some entries, and take this lower next week. Okay, so over to pound NZD. So very bullish this week. We had a really strong move to the upside, breaking highs and really continuing. So I did say with pound NZD, buys do look good, but I would wait for a much deeper pullback back into this area of consolidation. At that point, we had the 0.5 of the fib lining up very well with that area, but of course the market was just way too bullish. So a pullback that big never happened. And with a run like this, I would be more focused on some of these structural areas in the 4-hour chart. If I whip out the fib from that low to that high, it lines up very well with 0.618, this 2.06 area. So very bullish on pound NZD. I'm not sure how big of a swing we have left because the market is pretty bullish. So I do think a bigger pullback is on the cards. You can see pound NZD is a very corrected pair anyway. We've taken out some major highs. So I do think at some point pound NZD will go through a pretty big pullback to the downside. Yes, at the moment there's a lot of momentum of breaking highs looking very good. So buys still look good intra-week, intraday opportunities, but I do think at some point we will eventually come down. Of course, you know, as you would normally expect with an FX pair, we don't move forever, but taking that into consideration, I wouldn't be so aggressive with the buys. For example, if we do get a nice retest of that zone, 0.618, see some nice entries in that area. I think if we can get a push back to the high, that's a great trade in itself. I look to call it a day there. Potentially we do see some more highs, but I wouldn't be surprised if price is gonna eventually turn around there with pound NZD. But for now, this looks like a really nice area for a buy. Let's see if we can push it back to the high at 2.24. I think that looks like a nice trade, and then we can go from there, see, okay, is the trend continuing or is it looking like it's going to reverse? But nice confluence at that area, still looking for the retest of the high, which we haven't got yet. Nice confluence there, so still looking for more upside. Retest of 2.206 and some buys back to the high for pound NZD. Okay, so next up we've got CAD Yen. So CAD Yen does look like things are turning around. I do think there's a good chance we do push back to the high at 111.463. If I expand to the daily chart, although we had some nice momentum over the past few weeks to the downside, it does look like we could be placing in another high low, one over there, second, and potentially the third. So if that's the case, it's probably a good chance that we do push back to the highs. Maybe we still do sell off to the downside. That's still a possibility. We still do have all that momentum there. This still could just be a bigger correction. So the shorts are still not completely over, but it doesn't look like we're about to sell off in this leg anyway. So I do think if we drop to the low time frames, a lot of you guys looking at intra-week, intraday opportunities with this momentum to the upside, with this newfound bullish structure. We formed a nice double bottom over there, broke structure to the upside. The neckline of the pattern created that new high over there. Another pullback, higher low, the news kicked in and we saw new higher high. So I do think buys look good in the meantime. Corrections back into 108.6, or if you have a slightly deeper correction, 107.6, 107.5 we'll call it, looks very good as well. And if we can get back to the highs, then we can start speaking about some shorts again. But for now, really strong move to the upside, looking at a continuation of that momentum. Yes, I have been very bearish with CAD Yen. I've been actively selling it, but things have changed. Structure has changed. Momentum is shifting. It's no longer looking like price has just had a nice run to the downside, a pullback to continue lower. Of course, nothing is guaranteed. That could be the case, but most likely we are getting ready to see more upside, and then we can probably speak about some sales at 111 again. But for now, that's what I'm looking at for pound Yen. Buys from 108.5, buys from 107.6, at least a push back to the highs at 109, 110. but I do think we can get to that 111 mark next week. Okay, so over to pound USD. So pound USD, I am looking at more downside for this one because again, USD looks pretty strong to me. So if USD is going to push up, pound's likely going to push down. However, we have rejected very well a nice level of support, and it could be a big reversal for this one. But I would wait for price to go and break structure first to the upside and then look for the buys. Because if this is going to be another higher low, as I've spoken of with pound USD, we've got a major higher low over there, second there, third, potentially fourth as well. There's a long way to go back to the high, so I'm not really too fast about trying to catch the low of it. Of course, that'd be great to do in terms of a swing trade, but if I can catch the next pullback after that, I can still be on to a really nice winner. So the buys are still very much a very strong possibility, but if USD stays strong, it's going to be very difficult for pound USD to push up. And if we go and break through structure next week, take out these lows, probably going to end up forming some more lower highs back to that next daily level there, which is around the 1.234 mark, which is what I am leaning towards for pound USD. You can see we've been very consistent with these lower highs as of late, and I do think that pattern is going to continue and see some more. But let's see if price can actually break the lows first, because if we do start bouncing, we can turn around. Then I'll have to analyze and see if we do get the break of structure, then talk about some buys afterwards. But for now, still a lot of momentum to the downside. I do think that's what price is gonna likely push towards. So let's break through 1.25 first. That will be a sign that okay, the sellers are really stepping in, and then pullbacks intraday will look good. Maybe a retest of this low, depends on the breakout, but that's probably the most sensible option for now. And then yeah, expecting us to hit that next daily low, and we'll go from there. But pound USD looking at more downside. Let's see if 1.25 can break, and that will open up the door to some nice shorting opportunities. But that will be the plan next week for pound USD. Okay, so over to pound CAD. So pound CAD has had some trouble at the highs here. We were looking for upside next week for pound CAD, but I did say looking for a slightly deeper correction into this area for the buys. We kind of just got about 75% of the way there before pushing to the upside, and we eventually did break the highs. However, we came crashing back down. If I scoot to the weekly chart, you can see we do have a lot of wicks in this area. So this is clearly some strong resistance for pound CAD, and we're really struggling to break through this. So I do think next week we might see another retest of this area, provide another wick on the weekly chart for next week's candle, then probably see a bit of a reaction and a move to the downside. So I think shorts look good. Potentially a bit of a head and shoulder pattern could be brewing here on the 4-hour chart. If I connect the dots here, of course you got the high over there, the higher high and the lower high for the right shoulder, left, head, right, and that could be a really nice sell. Like I said, provide a bit of a wick into the zone next week, and then we get the sell back to the neckline, which would be this level of support, potentially maybe a little bit further into this area here as well. I wouldn't be too optimistic with the shorts, although it does look like price is really rejecting this level, big fake to the upside. There is a good chance for more downside, but let's not forget the trend is still very much up, and we just created a new high in this trend here. So the market is still definitely bearish. The shorts here still definitely counter trend against momentum, but they make sense. And if you do see some nice rejection there, shorts look good, at least back down to 1.79, and then we can go from there. But yeah, pound CAD really struggling at the highs here. So although we are bullish with the trend, it does look like that trend is really struggling, and there could be some opportunities to take advantage of that to the downside. So that'll be the plan next week for pound CAD. Okay, so next up we've got pound yen. So pound yen very bullish this week, really strong move to the upside, breaking through structure. I've been looking for this bearish, this bullish leg here to be a lower high and to see a continuation to the downside. That's never happened, and this week we got a strong push to the upside, breaking through the high, breaking structure. So that sell has been looking for, in relation to that bearish structure, of course, is no longer possible. There still could be a big move to the downside for pound yen. This could still be a larger correction and a big sell. We could double top at the high there and sell off. That is still very much a possibility. However, in terms of an intra-week, intraday perspective, the market's been very consistent with these high lows, still a lot of momentum to the upside. So I would still be looking at a bounce at this area, another high low forming, retesting some structure there around 195.622, and again looking for a push back to highs, and then we can start discussing some sells. If the market struggles here, there could be a really nice rollover, a really big one as well if you really sell off. Equally so, if we go and break the highs convincingly, then I do think we'll just continue and possibly come back to the highs there at 208, 207. So it's a very pivotal level, that level. We'll see what happens when we get there. But for now, higher lows have been consistent still. So I would expect another one to form. It's a healthy correction, coming back to test a nice area of confluence with the trend line and that area of support, area of resistance turn support now. So I do think price is likely to bounce and see some more upside. So hopefully nice double bottom, maybe early next week, and look to ride that momentum for the remainder of that week there. But that was the plan. That will be the plan for pound yen next week. Okay, so over to gold. So gold very bearish this week. We had the really aggressive double top up there. That was the high that wanted the price to break through to give us the new higher high. Never happened. Price came back, respected it, and we had a really big sell-off, actually breaking through these lows here as well. So I do think with gold, I do think price is likely to keep pushing down to come back to the lows here around 25.50, 25.60. So I do like the sells here on an intraday time frame. A lot of momentum still. Got some nice fresh areas of supply resistance up there, which looks like price could come back and retest. And of course, if USD is going to be strong as well, that should mean more downside for gold, at least most of the time anyway. So I do think gold does have that potential for another move back down. There's still fresh areas of support down there. You can see the momentum on the daily chart, really aggressive. Candles closing below that area. To me, looks like price coming back for a retest to see more downside into this low. And then potentially there could be some nice buys back up again. But we'll probably speak about that when we get there, probably next weekly analysis or whenever it comes around. But for now, looks like momentum still with the bears. This bullish leg here on the lower chart still looks very corrective to me. So I would expect that to be a pullback. And if we can get some nice entries around 26.30, 26.40, I think that'll be a great place to short and put stop loss above. And let's see if we can get it at least back to the current lows, which will be 25.84. I do think we can get it back to 25.50, 25.60 into those kind of 4H swing lows there. So that is the plan next week for gold. Okay, so up next we got Bitcoin. So Bitcoin very bearish this week, really big move to the downside. I've talked a lot about this ascending channel. I said there could be some nice buys into that area, but watch out because we might sell off. We tagged that area and we had a really big sell off there. One thing is that we were looking very bearish on Friday, but we did pull back and close bullish. So it's a sign that, okay, we had a bit of a drop, but momentum isn't really sustaining. We have broke out of the channel, which is not a good sign either. And if we do continue that and remain below this, I do think we'll probably see another drop there for Bitcoin. But it's not looking good anyway, even if momentum did drop down Friday, because we've been in this ascending channel, and these type of patterns don't normally mean continuation. They do normally mean prices getting tired for us to potentially turn around. And now it might just be a bigger pullback for Bitcoin. It probably will be, maybe to come back and retest some highs here around 72, 74k. I wouldn't be surprised to see that. But the fact is we've broken out the channel. We're trading underneath it right now. So I think shorts look good, still a bit aggressive because momentum overall is definitely to the upside, but we've got a sign that says that, okay, momentum is shifting, we're breaking through channels now, and if you do continue to hold that, this area of resistance here could provide some nice shorts back into the prior low and potentially a lot further. Like I said, I wouldn't be surprised to pull back all the way to the 75k mark. But I think in terms of at least intraday opportunities, sales look good, and a push back to the low looks really good. In terms of the buys, not really seeing a good buy yet. Maybe if we climb back above the channel and this turns to be a big fake out, then yeah, that could be a nice buy. But we need price to get back above that channel again, then we can speak about the retest and some longs. But that will be the only situation where I think a good buy opportunity does come around. Anything else might be a short-term push before price does continue selling off there. So that's the only way I would see a good buy. But at the moment, we're comfortably below, holding the resistance. So I do think another drop is probably likely here with Bitcoin. But yeah, not looking good. Keep an eye on 99k. I think that would be a key point, key price. If we stay below, yes, keep shorting. If we break above, might be just a big fake out for some buys. So that's where my attention will be for Bitcoin. But it does look like more downside will come next week. Okay, so over to New Zealand dollar. So very bearish this week, of course. USD very strong. New Zealand's been very weak, and similar to the Aussie dollar monthly chart, price has come back to some key areas here for New Zealand dollar, respected some support as resistance here, 0.63, and it does look like price is just seeing a continuation of this overall bearish trend here for New Zealand dollar, and probably going to take out these lows here at during COVID in 2020 around 0.546. So I do think there's a lot more downside to be expected for New Zealand dollar over the next few weeks, couple of months. So my job will be to look to find some nice pullbacks. If I drop to the daily chart and zoom out a little bit, you can see we've taken out some very key levels here. We broke through this area not too long ago. Now we've broken through this low here as well. The next key low we have is this area here at 0.555, and of course we've got that long-term monthly wick that we're aiming for back down to 0.546. So the idea is that we're looking for upside, purely expecting that to be a pullback for price to put the next lower high in and then continue selling off. So since we're looking very bearish at the moment, we'll be looking for some upside now for New Zealand dollar, not to buy it, but just to get ready to sell. And I would be looking for the retest of this area because the market is quite stretched, it's a bit overextended. I need to have a pretty decent pullback, and at least coming back to retest some of these areas would be sufficient for me to get involved. Retest some structure, find the next lower high, and of course looking to continue that momentum back to lows and hopefully a lot further. I'm looking to swing my trades, trail stop. So this is a situation where I do think we can continue dropping and really try and stretch the trade here. But that will be the plan for New Zealand dollar. You can see very consistent with the lower highs there on the 4-hour chart. So my plan would be to look to continue that and keep shorting until proven otherwise. So New Zealand dollar very bearish. This is the bonus pair. It's looking very good, and I do think more downside is likely to follow. And that does bring us to the end of the analysis, ladies and gentlemen. If you have found it useful, please be sure to smash the like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and of course hit the bell so you don't miss out on any streams or uploads in the future. Comment down below any pairs you're looking to trade, any pairs you're looking to analyze next week. I know it's a festive season next week, so you guys are probably taking some time off, and rightly so. But there could be some opportunities, so keep an eye out for that. And of course, if you are taking a break, then take the break. We'll be back in the new year. Hopefully, some more volume, more volatility in the new year, so things can pick up the pace a little bit. But hope you have found this useful, guys. If you have, like I said, hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't done already. I do appreciate all the love you guys have been showing. But guys, have a great weekend, and I'll catch you all in the next one.